think most people realize that the greatest threat to our liberties is not violent invasion. Who's going to invade us? You know, it's not going to happen. Even at the height of the Cold War, the odds of an invasion were pretty minimal. They were more dangerous at that time. I was called to military duty in 1962 during the Cuban crisis, and that was probably the height of the Cold War, but we didn't have to, you know, fight the Soviets. But it's internal threat that is the problem. It's the philosophy of the country, this attitude of what the government should be doing. And are we going to accept this idea that if we just get scared enough, we allow the government to run roughshod over us? So in times of war, whether it's war against terrorism, war against the Iraqis, or war against the Iranians, the people are supposed to roll over. And I would say it's time not to roll over, but to stand up and resist. The big issues in the Congress today has to do with the FISA courts. The Senate has passed a bill that gives amnesty and gives exemption to the telecommunication systems that disobeyed the law and turned over all their records to the government just because the government asked them. They broke the law. They're liable for lawsuits. And now the Republicans, and that's not saying a whole lot right now, but the Republican Party now is standing firm. What they want more than anything else is to pass FISA that exempts retroactively any telecommunications company that turned over all our records to the government so that they can never be held liable. And that right now is the most important issue on the House floor today for our side of the aisle, I'm sad to say. But just think of what that means. If the government can come in and hire companies to break the law and undermine our liberties, and then they are exempted. That means literally that they can hire some private firm, come in and invade our house and say, well, we're going to exempt it because the government asked us to do this. So our liberties are indeed threatened. We have the Patriot Act, which is a good bill that we should have all voted against, and I was proud to say I voted against the Patriot Act. We do have warrantless searches. We have the government monitoring our internet, our telephone conversations, and if you belong to a certain group, this Domestic Terrorism Act, they talk, if you belong to a certain group where one person might have done something, you could be held liable. It is really an undermining of a lot of our civil liberties. Right now, today, we have become known around the world as a nation that tortures. This whole debate about whether or not we should waterboard or not, I think that is so sad that we've come to this point where we are the torturers of the world, and the symbol of Abu Ghraib and Guantanamo is what so many others think of us around the world. And also the whole idea that the writ of habeas corpus has been repealed essentially. We now could be hauled off into prison. It's been done 2 or 3 times now, and have no lawyer, be put in prison, and have no recourse because somebody declared you a potential terrorist. Well, but most people, a lot of Americans say, oh, that's okay, we should lock up those terrorists, those are bad guys. But every time they do that, you have to think, those are suspects. Those are suspects. And if they can do that with one American, they can do it with all of us if we're not careful, and that's why this has to be reversed. The idea of national sovereignty is something that I still think we should be concerned about. I still believe that we should honor national sovereignty, which means that I do not see any purpose to belong to the United Nations. Bank or the WTO or the American Union. I understand either today or tomorrow the President's meeting with the President of Mexico and Canada once again on their land. I hear they're planning a big highway, something like that. No, we don't need more government. We need less government in Washington. We need more local government. We need more liberty. You can't have more freedom by more world government. And that is what's happening. The WTO, the World Trade Organization, has already sent instructions to the United States Congress where we followed through and changed our tax code because we were instructed to. That's how far along we are on this. So we don't need that. We have every right to protect our borders and defend our borders. I think that there's no reason to be hostile to immigrants. I don't think that is but we can be hostile. We can be hostile to illegal immigration. In the debates, I think the whole immigration issue should be seen more in terms of economics than anything else. Because when you have a weakening economy and our good jobs are going overseas and we have a welfare state and you have to pay for the education and medical care of those who come here illegally, then it becomes a threat, it becomes a burden. If we were a truly thriving economy where those trillions of dollars we spend overseas were being spent here, there would be a need for labor. There would not be nearly the concern and hostility. Today, when 90% of the American people believe we're in a recession and having trouble, and we see immigrants coming in as a threat, that is a big problem. But I think the first thing we should do is not reward people for coming illegally. We should not give them amnesty. I don't believe the federal government should ever come down and give mandates to the individual states for you to have to provide free benefits, because that is not what America is all about. It's a land of opportunity, and the law is going to be written. But there's this problem, I'm afraid, is going to get a lot worse, mainly not because we will just become more hostile, but because the economy is going to get worse, and it's going to be transferred. This hostility will be transferred. So, we do have a lot of problems. We have the financial problems, we have the foreign policy, the monetary problems, the personal liberties problem. But, the great part about all this is the problems aren't that confusing and complex, and the answers aren't that difficult either. It can be found by just following the Constitution. That's all we have to do. Which requires we need some different people in Washington. There's also the change of a country doesn't come when you convert 51% of the people, and it comes when you convert 5 or 10% of the people. And right now, I think our group in this campaign is about 10% of the people, and we're on the verge of changing the country. That is why, even if you don't get the support of the mainstream media, and you don't get the attention, and we tend to get marginalized in our beliefs, but if we are determined and understand and know the system and know how to do it, we'll work hard. 5 or 10 or 15% if you're activists, if you're involved in the caucuses and the voting and local politics, you can have an impact. Because the one thing that I have noticed in this past year is that the perception of our campaign has been very, very good. More signs, more people, more determination, more excitement than all the rest put together. That's right.